Thank you very much for inviting us to give this presentation. I would try to start with a prelude to the why we're doing the lifetime, or actually mid-life upgrade on Gotland, and how we work with the abilities and accessibility of our submarines and how to use them and why we use them. So I will start with a little more strategic and operational thoughts about the submarine service in Sweden. This is a lovely boat. You can see the second of Gotland class, the Uppland. They are old now. They're going for midlife extension program, and Jan will explain that later on. My outline today, I will talk a little bit about the underwater domain and why Sweden thinks it's essential to be able to operate there. About submarine operations, laying out the lines, how we think and why we do our submarine operations, and what we think is most essential of what we can do with submarines. And at the end of the day, it's a balance of sort of deconflicting different needs and what you want to have and what you can afford to have. And ending on the overlay to the midlife update on Gotland, the drivers of today as we see it. We mentioned from a previous talkers here, some of the things we are walking into, AUVs, UUVs, etc., communications mentioned, maintenance, the period at sea, etc., etc. So, the tugboat, this one, is the first Swedish submarine from 1904. Its name is the Hajen, it's shark in English. That's why it's a Swedish submarine. We don't have dolphins, we have a shark as fin. And actually, it was interesting to see the first Swedish-built submarine in the Greece presentation, the Nordenfeldt, from 1886. Thank you very much for that. So submarine construction has been of interest in Swedish engineering and Swedish naval architects for a long time. Almost as long as Jules Verne's voyage in the oceans, you know. But anyway, this brings us also to that we have 110 years, actually 111 years of submarine in Swedish Navy now. We had a tough period in the 2004, actually, before the defense decision, 2004, in the fall of 2004. And that was when I was commanding officer in submarine service. We had to make an agenda to explain, both for the Swedish people and for our politicians, the parliament and the government, and even the military, mostly Army and Air Force, of course, to make them understand why we need submarines to operate. We used actually a very good method that we learned together with our Norwegian colleagues in the Viking project that was running at that time. How to break down and make people understand your need for different abilities and how you operate submarines and what is beneficial for the investor of this, the government and the parliament, why they should invest in submarines. And starting that, as you heard, we went also to another ocean, the Pacific Ocean, unoperated submarines there. It went smoothly for 2 years, 2 different setups of operations. We learned a lot, mainly in maintenance and logistics. Driving a boat, as you say, as long as the boat at sea is no problem. When they're going back from sea, if you want to have a maintenance problem or you want to change the operational pattern, if your operations are going to change, for example, from a sea denial to a mine laying or a soft, then you have to think through. All these 10 years from 2004, we have moved this one. We moved actually to have a firm decision by our parliament on governmental issue in the bill for the budget bill, that actually now the underwater domain is of essential national security interest for Sweden. It was posted from the government to the parliament last year, together with the Air Force. They are of national interest, these two arms, the Air Force and the submarine. And we have proven, and we are still proving, that we have can build our own boats, we can design them, we can maintain them. We have decided to build 2 new submarines and to do a midlife update on the Gotland class. Gotland, the A26 is a new class, and A19 is the Gotland class in the submarine design numbers from the Kockums shipyard. And we also are safeguarding all intellectual property that actually are developed by our taxpayers' money. So that's why we at FMV, the Defense Military Administration, have to safeguard them, because it's a national investment in this. Then we make agreements how to use them. So this is an interesting international and national decision, but it has international. It means a lot for international customers or for international partners how we do this, and we have a very good cooperation with Singapore, for example. Further on, the baseline for submarine operations. You know all this, but I would try to explain out of the Swedish perspective, because our main operational area is the Baltic. If you send a boat at sea, you have a certain operational objective. Why should it be at sea? Should it sink ships? Should it put up mines? Should it deliver divers? Should it be ESM or intelligence operation of any kind? You need to have an objective, otherwise it's just wasting to be out to sea. With this operational objective, you find a way to operational area, different in base, transit, and of course in the area. And as you can see, we have another kind of weather conditions up in the Baltic. It varies very much from winter, spring, summer, and fall. And we have an environment geographically and hydrographically that also varies a lot. And with the hydrographical, you have the different hydroacoustics that varies a lot, and you don't have the, I would say, similar like in the blue water oceans, like static almost. Here you have a lot of layers, and you have brackish water up in the northern part of the Baltic. We have an average depth from Baltic, about 70 meters, which means that we are close to surface almost all the time. That was one driver, because you know the Baltic and the Cold War area, that we started in the 80s to develop an AIP system. We tried in the 60s, it wasn't good enough for the A11 class that's now sailing in Singapore. But then we got the hands, or actually Kockums got the hands on the Stirling engine, developed it. We took apart one boat in 1988, sea trials, and then from the A19 class, this one, is the first to have designed with the AIP Stirling system. And from 2005, all submarines in Sweden have AIP systems. And that was because of the air threat in the Baltic. Once out of the base, you have an enormous ASW air threat from the beginning. We didn't want to get catch on our doorsteps. We wanted to reach the operational area. You also have to look at the opposition and the threat when you go at sea. And mixing all this, you come up with the design of the submarine, what you want it to do, how far is for the operation area, do you have any special things like an AIP system, do you have sonars? And we talked about sonars. My Portuguese colleague here, I realized how you feel about your new sonar system. We have the similar system imported in our boats in the late 80s for the A70 class. And it was eye-opening. So I really agree with what you say. The sonar becomes the main sensor, and you can work very good with it. Furthermore, I would like to put in this, when you break all these parts into a starter design, you always will end up with a compromise. If it's not to compromise on what you want to do, where you want to do it, on the environment, it will finally be compromised on money. The money is the baseline when you need to make the biggest compromise. Sometimes even in the construction phase when you build the submarine. So For this reason, I want you to understand that we have made compromises in our submarines designs. We all do, but we have to admit them, and we might have to choose them carefully. Some designs you can adapt in a midlife update or in a lifetime extension, but there always be in a submarine design its compromises. The drivers, as I see today, we have the touched by our friends, previous speaker says as well. The boats that we want to do, they want to do a lot of operational activities. So we need to be multi-mission submarines. And it's mentioned here, you, as a submariner, you do a lot of things. You cannot be locked into a task group and commanded by a task group commander if you're not a task group commander yourself. But the design need to be multi-purpose for you to shift your focus during operation. If you think of this when you design the boat and the flexible payload, and this is one of the things that we are looking very carefully into the A26, to be able to have flexible payload inside the boat. That means we have a big payload lock instead of torpedo tubes. We solve it by taking away 2 torpedo tubes to get a big lock for swimmers, AUVs, or whatever. One other thing that's been mentioned today, the endurance. As we operate the AIP Sterling system now for 25 years at sea, no problems, no hazards, ever, knock knock. We only have 2 modules on board. One for hotel load and the other for propulsion. And as submariners, you know that once you get in a congested sea and you want to increase your speed more than 5 or 6 knots, you're starting to get blind by your sonar and you're creating noise. So one system for hotel load and one for speed, that's good enough. And even you get some small ampere hours out so you can reload your batteries at the same time. But we're also looking into new battery technology. It's mentioned lithium ion. We are very interested to see how that will work. But it's still on I don't think it's ready for taking aboard a submarine yet. And we all know what's happening in the airline business. But eventually, there will be a new energy storage system, eventually, in the close future. Other thing that I would like to stress, that's a thing that we want, is network connection. And connectivity has been mentioned here before. You know, the problem with airborne transmission and underwater transmission. The surface is like a boundary. And as we stick up a mast above this boundary, we're in the midst of exposing ourselves. So we have to do it very carefully. And I totally agree with the presentation on the periscope. So the optronic mast have been too big today. But we need to get something up there, one way or another, to get connected into the Navy net. And also, we put a lot of IT support to process all this info because of a lot of sensors. And processing this information needs IT support because the crews are smaller and smaller. We're doing about 28 people on board now. We also have help of decision making. But in this perspective, I also stress that decision making, on my perspective, it will always need to be man in the loop to decide if the computer has made the right decision or not. And the old thing, back to the old, is always in submarines. Why we went submerged? Because we wanted to hide the optical identification. But there always be a similar to sensor dual. We talked a lot of acoustic. In the short future, I would say acoustic will be overwhelmed by other sensors. And we know this from other developments worldwide. Acoustic, I say, has reached its maximum capability. not as acoustic, but as a passive acoustic, because if you want to change submarines, the submarines of today, the modern boats, they are so quiet, you cannot hear them. But you will hear something that's not the submarine, but it's the lack of noise if you go out in the ocean. You will not detect the submarine by its noise, you will detect it by lack of noise. We also look very much into magnetic electric sensors, and this comes mainly, the magnetic comes of course from the Baltic, because the Baltic Sea was a well-known mine warfare area during the First and the Second World War. And we learned a lot by doing mine clearance operations in the Baltic after the Second World War, through the 50s and now, during the 90s and now, even now, together with the Baltic state, together with the German, Polish Navy, and there's also a NATO group coming regularly every year, and we do still mines. There was dumped about 300,000 mines, which they calculated there's still about 100,000 left up there. They're not that active because of the sensors part, but they're built on magnetic, and being operating close to the seabed, 70 meters water depth, you need to have a very good knowledge about your magnetic status. And of course, the modern technology gives us electrical field. There's also a new way of detect submarines. And when you stick something out of the water, IR, the snorting head, or that's why we take exhausts out into the water, but you still have a wake when you can detect, and of course radio and radar. Coming, new technology, wake. Even if you move the submarine slowly, it will create a wake in the water volume. And seismic. When you start working too close to the bottom, there will be seismic waves as well, depending on how you operate. So this will be signatures and sensors you have to work on to be able to signature management and to keep your stealth factor. That's why the submarines went underwater from the very beginning, to be unseen and to be able to conduct its operational undetected and successfully. So this is actually your turn, John.
Yeah.
And now you have to explain what we do with the Gotland to get to this.
This was a smooth transition between the operational domain to the technical domain. I'm also very grateful to be here today to talk about the midlife upgrade of Gotland. Being the product manager for A26, I often have to stand trial for the spec and for the requirements of A26. So I'm happy to talk about the A19 today. I'm not going to wandering around as Anders did. In Stockholm we have quite a bit of Norwegian weather that has affected my throat, so I will stand here by the microphone. There is a lot of talk about A26 in Sweden, and in the news you always see the futuristic pictures of A26. But there is no question about it. It's these two types of submarine that the Navy are focusing on right now. We have a small submarine fleet in Sweden. That's a fact. It's a sharp submarine force. That's a personal opinion after staying 10 years on board HMS Upland, which Anders showed on the first slide. We need them, and we need double crews for them because we only have 4. Actually, before the election, the politicians were debating and talking a lot about the 5th submarine for the Swedish Navy, but and that was in the same period when Putin showed his real face. So, but after the election, nobody talks about the 5th boat anymore. So I guess we have to stick with the with the 4 we have and do the best of them. We have the Södermanland class, which is the A-17 submarine built in the mid-80s. We did a midlife upgrade on A-17 in the end of the 90s, where we put in a Stirling plug. So then she became quite similar to A-19. And as you can see on the data, they are nearly sister boats. There are differences, obviously, because there are 10 years between the 2 classes, and it's mainly in the signatures. The Gotland class, yeah, it was launched, as Anders said, in the mid-90s. We are doing the midlife upgrade now, 20 years. It's a bit late, but we have already started or cheated with the midlife upgrade. We changed the complete combat management system for 3 or 4 years ago. Now we are just starting the construction for the midlife upgrade phase. What is the task given from the armed forces? Yeah, it's to develop and modify 2 submarines to meet the new staff requirements, to increase the availability in order to be able to use 2 crews, and and of course to adapt to all the new regulations, IMO regulations, laws, and we're also aiming to have Gotland operational way or beyond her lifetime, and the lifetime today is 2025. But we are changing a lot of systems on board, and only to use Gotland 7 years after the midlife upgrade would be very stupid. So she will be there for a long period. The task should be carried out following design to cost principle. Could you tell me about any program that is carried out according to design to requirement only? I would dream of working in that project. This means that we have a fixed budget and we have to harmonize the requirements to fit in that budget. That is the fact, I think, for all us in the submarine community. We should coordinate as much as possible with the A26, and being so late with the midlife upgrade program was actually positive in this aspect, because now we could sign contract on both the A19 MLU and A26 in the same period. So we can press Kockums Saab to a very good price, and on the other hand, they could negotiate very good with the subcontractors. So this means, this means that we get a very cost-efficient upgrade for A19. This is also very good for if we have contracted similar systems for A19 and A26, we will have much benefit in the training as well, in the life cycle. So what capability do we add, update, and enhance? Well, of course, as I mentioned, it's the rules and regulations just to sustain the capability we have, mainly in the habitability area. We need to keep the young sailors to stay on board and make it worth the effort. And for that, we need to do something about the environment on board. not saying that we need to be on internet, what? I lost the word. I don't use it myself. Facebook. You see? No, it's. But they need to be more convenient than before. That has many submarine force or many submarine nations shown. It has to be more convenient for the young people to stay. Yeah, and there are some other rules and regulations. The air purification must be improved. The ocean transit has been a problem for A19. We didn't have the conning tower before, but now with the new diving lock, we will have a conning tower, which means that we can actually operate out in the blue ocean in a much higher extent than before. For the availability, we have looked much into the maintenance. After 20 years of operating the A19, we have gained a lot of experience that we can pour down into the maintenance now and create a more condition-based maintenance concept and be confident in that one. This have we put a lot of effort into. And of course, there is a lot of obsolescence management. The AIP components are often components that are unique, and we have a risk of lacking spare parts all the time. There are new companies are closing and so on. So we are securing, especially the AIP components, the sub-safe components, and the long lead item components, so we can have them in store before we go into overhaul periods. As many other nations, we are also ripping out the periscope and replacing them with optronics. This is a quite big change for the Navy. Gotland is the first submarine in Sweden that get the optronics. And we will not double it. We will not keep a periscope and add on an optronics. We will replace it. So it requires a lot of training, a lot of change in mindset while we are doing this upgrade period for the CEOs. Challenging, yes. And also we have being constructed in the 90s and operational from the mid-90s. We have a lot of semi-digital circuit boards, equipment on board that need to be replaced. Takes also a lot of effort. For the AIP, we are from now using the same fuel as for the diesels. We are doing a lot of signature improvements, both in the propulsions, AIP, with the exhaust. We are looking a lot more into UEP and ELFE now, due to the fact that now we have gained some knowledge in that area. But it's still new, and you can't change this design so much out of the perspective UEP and ELFE. But at least we have focused on it now. We will have new masts. It's a profiled carbon fiber masts made for higher transit speed. The comms, we will have military SATCOM, SHF SATCOMs, and we will have systems for communicating at depth. We will have a new passive sonar similar to, not the same, but similar to the A26 sonar. It will be the same Atlas sonar, but a modern one. We will have the extended flank array sonar on Gotland class. For the eventual international operations, which we are not focusing on anymore, we will although do a tropicalization so we can act and operate in warm water if we need to. And one big, huge change when it comes to capability is adding of the diver's lock on the Gotland class submarine. That is new. And that diving lock will be the same as we have on A17 now. Okay, so how will we do this? Well, the most time-consuming and the biggest risk, we might say, in the upgrade will be the cutting of the boat, where we will add a section of 2 meters. And why we do that? Yes, because we add a lot of weight when we put the diver's lock up in the fin, and we will also the new ESM, the optronics will also add a lot of weight on top. So for stability and buoyancy, we need to add a 2 meter section. And we also, then we will be able to take on board more fuel, and the endurance will be increased. So it's a good thing. But it's still a risk to do this. But however, the Kockums, they have done it for the Singapore Navy, and we did it with the midlife upgrade of A17. So the experience are there, the knowledge are there. So hopefully it will go smooth and well. But this is the biggest risk in the project. Okay, so where are we today? Current status. The system design are completed as of September this year. Most of the subcontractors have already been signed or contracted. There will be a critical design review to follow within 6 months from today. That means that the specific exact drawings will be produced pretty soon. The hull sections are already there, and this week boat number 1 are handed over to the dockyard to start the production. So as we sit here, we are actually starting to cut steel. Time is critical, because we have few boats, and we have pressed the time schedule as hard we can, because meanwhile these 2 boats are in the dockyard, the Navy only have 2 submarines. That's not good, but that's life. But the time schedule are very important. There is a production time of 30 months, 2 years in the dockyard, and 6 months of sea trials. The overlap is for the boats are 1.5 years. So for 1.5 years, the Navy will be out of the 2 A19 submarines. The working horses during that period is the A17 and the submarine that is not getting the midlife upgrade. which is HMS Hallam. They will be the working horses during this period. Coordination with A26 has been a driving important thing for both projects. Very interesting thing, because you have two separate projects with two separate, very dedicated project managers, and you are preparing a lot in the A19 program that you get benefit for in the A26 project. So how much money does the A26 project manager has to give to the Gotland program? I've been following that. Very interesting discussions. But the most important part is that we get as similar systems as we can. Note that A26 is going to be delivered 2024 and Gotland upgrade 2019-2020. So the time difference means still means things, and the budget for A26 are quite larger than for the MLU. So, however, the combat management system, we are going to use the A26 software. So software-wise, it will be the same. The hardware will still be the old A19. Passive sonar will be nearly similar. Active sonar is the MOAS and the bottom navigation sonar. That will be, and now I'm going to make Norway happy, it's going to be a Kongsberg system. Radar ESM. ESM on A26 will be the newest generation it can be, and we are upgrading the current ESM system on A19 with that software as far as possible. So it will not be exactly the same. The optronics will be the same. SACHM, comms and antennas will be as same as possible. The fin is not suitable for exact the same mast as A26, so we have to adopt that, obviously. Navigation, yes, the same as A26. Platform system, the ship's control management system is also built on the same principle. Stirling modules, Stirling engines, and equipment regarding Stirling will be the same. The Mark III, Gotland has right now Mark II, an older generation. Mast system will be the Calzone mast system, profile mast. And also we have the same requirements and the same chill system for A19 as the A26. Hull section that we have talked about. It's basically for stability and buoyancy. We didn't want to add length to it, but we had to do it. So it's a compromise due to the fact that we put the diving lock in the fin. Here you can see the sensors and masts. The whole mast forest will be completely new. The only old thing is the radar antenna, but still on a new mast. And also the existing snort head will be the same as we have today. Everything else is changed. Okay, going rapidly through some pictures inside the submarine. Control room, it will be changed, but mainly software. The multifunctional consoles are already there. So it will remain basically the same as it is. The big change is the optronic consoles. There will be added 2 optronic consoles. Diver's lock, the new capability. That will affect Gotland in a very positive way. We have a problem with the life raft on the outside of the tower. Now we can have it inside. We get the conning tower, and obviously we can have the MSO capability that A19 lacked. So this will make a change. Stirling engine, well, what is changed there is actually we are going from Mark II to Mark III. And Mark III, what you can see is it's 70% smaller in volume due to the fact that we change the generator to a permanent PM generator. But they are more efficient, they are smaller, and they are more, I would say, quieter, but the signature are much better on the Mark III. So that's the big change there. Okay, future. I'm not going to talk so much about the future. This is my last slide. But A19 is the backbone of the submarine force, and it will be operational in parallel with A26 for many years. And we tend to talk about A26 and the future all the time, but A19 will have nearly the same operational profile as A26. Definitely when it comes to the Baltics, it will have the same capability. A26 are bigger due to the fact that she's more designed for blue ocean and international operations than the A19 is. So I'll stop there.